Welcome to Maintenance Monday, part 4 of our battery series. And this week we're taking everything we've learned over the past weeks and we're going to actually put it into practice. We're going to actually put it in a coach, show you some setups, show you the aftermath of how you wire things up. Some are good choices, some are bad choices, and let's go. Okay, so now that I've gloved up, let's talk about what we're doing next. I know it's not gross, but it can be a little bit of corrosive on your hands. The other thing we want to do is make sure that when we're doing maintenance on these batteries, remember, if we don't have an AGM or a gel, we have to do maintenance on them. So part of that maintenance check is checking the water fluid inside your batteries, okay? So safety glasses are a must. Always wear safety glasses. Don't take the chance you get this sulfuric acid that's in here in your eyeballs. It's going to burn and it could do damage. The other thing is anything that battery acid gets on clothes, things like that, it will actually eat them and deteriorate them. You'll have holes in your clothes. So don't wear your Sunday's best while you're checking your batteries, unless you want to. That's up to you. So I'm going to safety glasses, gloves, okay, because I don't want to get it on my hands. So this type has the quick turn setup. There's others that have individual caps that you can pop off or twist off. I like these because they're just easy. And to do this, what you're going to do is you're going to take off the battery cap, okay, and you can look down inside there and you'll see the water. You can see the water level. Water level should be somewhere just barely below the inner lip down there. And that's what we're looking for. Anytime that you are charging these batteries, the water can boil off, especially when you have a charger that is charging all the time and is not a multi-stage charger. Okay, we talked about that as well. Always recommend getting a multi-stage charger for any RV. They usually only come with a single stage, and that's what it does. It's meant to charge, period. Well, if you keep charging your batteries to death, whether it's sitting in storage or it's doing something, with you guys out camping, then you can overcharge them, boil off the water, and then basically you do damage to the batteries. There's two ways you can damage a battery. You can damage it through boiling off the water, and then there's no water in there. The sulfuric acid then eats the plates and causes sulfur crystals and basically erodes or degrades the battery's performance. A lot of times we can't just add water back once it's empty. You're basically buying new batteries at that point. I will not try to add water. If you do need to top the battery off, don't go above the inside collar. Stay just below the inside collar. Really, you want them so that the plates are covered. The other thing you want to look at is make sure that you always use distilled water. Do not use tap water because it can have chlorine in it. It's going to have other minerals in it. It's going to have other things that are actually going to cause an issue and a reaction with the electrolyte balance that's in the water itself. Okay, so to put the cap back on, you just place it down inside there and we're going to turn it until it's tight. And that's it. That's how we do an inspection on a 6-volt battery. Okay, now let's move this one out of the way and let's talk about a 12-volt battery. Screwdriver works. If you can't get a screwdriver in there because it's in a tight area or it's in a battery box or it's down inside a step, say on a motorhome, then do what you can do. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll come in here and I can push it under and dig underneath, and that way I get leverage here. You can use use whatever you need. Find an old cheap screwdriver that costs $1 at a thrift store and bend it so you have one to check. It really is completely up to you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have the camera person step back just a bit because sometimes when these open up, they can pop and spray. We're going to very carefully and very gently pry them up. Okay. And you can see where the water is inside there. All right. There is a lip that's down inside and you want to keep that just below the lip. Okay. And again, 12-volt battery will have either 6 individual caps that you can rotate and take off or pop off, or they'll have 2 big caps like this. Now there are other types, all types of batteries There are ways of checking them. These just happen to be surface caps. Sometimes they're recessed into the battery top. So there's different types of batteries. So this is the most common ones that you'll find for either dual purpose or deep cycle. Get your voltmeter and check the voltage across all your terminals to make sure that it's correct, because if you hook these up wrong and you go to charge a battery wrong, or you hook your converter up to a battery that is hooked up wrong, you can actually do damage to your converter, damage to the batteries, and it can also squirt or spray acid on things. Okay, so that's really important. You have to be very careful. How often should you be doing this? Once a month if you're charging it all the time. If they're just sitting and they're not, and sitting stagnant and they're not being charged, then once a quarter, once every 6 months is fine. But when you're active, you want to make sure you're checking them often. Okay, so we're talking about maintenance-free batteries. Okay, maintenance-free is AGM gels or lithiums, because they do not need to vent. They do not need to have, there's no off-gassing. Okay, so the way I've got my battery set up, this is actually in my personal coach. I got my negative here, the positives over here. I made sure that I covered that because I am close to the sidewall here. So I'm protected there from arcing. And then I've got my actual battery coming into here on the actual bus. So it's pulling into the bus bar up here for my monitoring system, and then out through the negative bus bar and out to my accessories. Let's talk about safety in mounting a flooded lead acid battery. Remember, they are not maintenance free. They're flooded cells. They have open caps that we can actually inspect and make sure the water levels are correct. The key to it is, because they off gas, they're not sealed, they need room to breathe, and we have to have it some way of doing that. We cannot let them sit in a cabinet unless they're in a sealed box. This is one type of box, and I'm going to show you this one first. This is the best type of box to have, because all of your batteries sit within this battery box. There's one here and one here. They're wired in parallel, because this is two 12-volt batteries. Then the main lead comes up to here, passes through, and then you put your hot leads and your ground leads there. This battery box then vents from the back side here up here to the vent right there. And fresh air at the bottom of the battery box underneath the shelf that it's sitting on, and then it will flow that fresh air up, mix with it, and push it up and out. That's important because a flooded lead acid is an open battery and it needs to breathe. Otherwise, if you have the certain right concentrations of sulfuric acid, and it will off gas and you'll create a hydrogen mix, which then will become an explosive hazard. It also is very toxic to the lungs, and you should not be breathing it in. So that's another reason why you want to keep your batteries sealed. Okay, this is the battery box again that I recommend completely, because it's got two lips that overlap each other and a rubber seal or a foam seal inside between the two, and they overlap each other. This really does keep the batteries contained and keeps the air moving in there when they off gas. Okay, so I recommend that. That's the best option. If you can't get that option, let's go talk about another option at another trailer. Okay, so this setup, they actually have an interesting setup. I don't really like this one as much, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. It's not as effective, and talking about how it's connected doesn't really work too well. So, but you can see there's a vent here and there's a vent here, which means that you got two batteries, but they're separate in the compartment. Not exactly effective, but let me show you how this works. So this side over here, has one battery. Now this is a new unit, so they don't have the second battery installed yet. They come shipped with one because now they're putting solar in. Okay, so with solar they have to have something to go there, otherwise they have to disconnect the solar panels. It's a shipping thing. But you can see here's your vent tube that goes up, vents through the front wall exactly the way it's supposed to be. They have a series of screws that go around the way it's supposed to be. But look, it's cracked. So when they installed it, they put this in and it's cracked. That's a problem. We don't want that because now this will off gas within the compartment. Second problem is, if you can see back here where they ran the wires through, see? So there's the wire. That's going to off gas out through this crack. So that's not an effective way of doing it, okay? So this is a poor installation. Do not install your batteries this way. This is a fire hazard and also a health hazard, okay? The right way of doing this, I'll show you on this side, since I do not have the option for taking that side off. Here's your seal. You can see how the seal is there. It's just a foam seal. Doesn't need to be anything special. It's sticky on one side and not on the other. That's the bottom of the box. You can see how the gases go up into the tube and then out. And when you put this on, it should seal tight with the screws that you put on, okay? And they do give you a place to put your cable through on one side, your negative or positive, whichever side they run it on. And that's one way of installing it. And you would put another piece of foam there and that would seal the wire off. The other way of doing it is to drill a hole through the side of the box, a small hole that would fit your battery cable. You would push this through the battery box. You would lift it up and it would be basically through the battery box and connections. Then you would put either a grommet around the wire to seal it off or some caulk. And that would be the way to use the cheap battery boxes, okay? Let's talk about another thing I don't like about how this setup is and how it's inefficient, okay? So, if you look, we have two batteries. We have one here and one there, and they're wired in parallel. Okay, remember, two 12-volt batteries. They wire in parallel. But if you look up here, they have it running into this breaker transfer switch here for the 12-volt system. It runs up, across, down, and then back into here. So tell me how that's going to be efficient at all. Tell me how that's going to work and draining your batteries evenly all the way. It's not. Okay? The other thing that they did was they connected your grounds straight to the frame here on this battery, and they did the same thing here behind the spare tire to the frame there. Look how long this wire is. So they're basically connecting that to the frame. This one then connects to a negative bus bar and then to this battery. So inefficient. Completely wrong. You do not want to do this. What you want to do is you want to take this battery box, move it over next to this battery box. And I know they were doing that to give you more floor space. You can turn them and rotate them however you want. And then you want a jumper wire. Again, go through the side of the battery box, through the battery box, and then you put everything together. That's why I don't like these battery boxes as much. The other battery box I showed you that has the two nubs on the top for your contacts, your negative and your positive, work much better. So don't do this. And whoever buys this trailer or whoever owns a trailer like this really should rip out all of this and move it over to here. It wouldn't be that hard. You could abandon the vent there and you can buy an extra vent and you can just move it right over here and you can put it right underneath the other vent and put your other battery box there. Simple, easy, effective. With these two batteries as far apart as they are, it's actually going to suck the power on the closest one first, and it sucks off of this battery first. remember we talked about this. This battery here is now going to support this battery, and it's not going to last as long. The key is to pull evenly across both batteries in your bank. With as much wire as they have running here, your resistance is high, and you're not going to get the amount of watt hours out of your batteries the way you need to run those appliances. So I would be considering, even with this, how I would change this. I would get rid of the lead acid batteries that are flooded, and I would put in AGMs, which are sealed lead acids, no maintenance. Stack them right here, and you could put one 200 amp hour, which would fit perfectly in this corner, or you could stack multiples next to each other and wire them in parallel. That's what I would recommend for this coach. So we're going to press pause for the next few weeks because I want to do some more research on lithium setups, solar panel setups, and a whole array of things for your boondocking adventures. Realistically, what we want to do is we want to give you the best and most updated information. I'm also going to provide links to videos and things that other people have much more knowledge in this area than I do. So that way you guys have the best knowledge at hand to make the best decision. Thank you for joining us for this Maintenance Monday, and enjoy the journey.